Hello.
G'day, Wazza.
Hey, Trent, how are you?
Good, mate. G'day, everybody that's on the call.
Nice to see you. How's everything going?
Mate, I feel like I should be the new year already, mate. That's how I feel. I reckon everybody else probably feels about much the same way as well.
Yeah, it's been a full-on year, and then of course we've got Christmas, and we've got all kinds of things to wait forward to, haven't we?
Mate, it is. I bought a plane ticket the other day and got the confirmation. And when I looked at the confirmation email, I thought, oh no, I've booked the wrong bloody date. This says November. And then I realized, I know, it is November. We are in November, mate. She's moving quick.
Yeah, it's a bit like that at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. So a bit about the
Well,
reset and the awakening tonight, mate.
yeah, it's a really good one. The Great Reset to the Great Awakening, the wake up, clean up, show up, grow up, which is, one of my favorite topics, really.
Mate, very appropriate, very important, brother.
Yeah, probably more important than ever, I think, right now.
Well, these opportunities don't always happen, mate, and I see it just as a great opportunity above anything.
Yeah, well, you were the one who came up with that phrase, the Great Reset, the Great Awakening, which I like. So maybe we'll start today. I mean, obviously, there's so much happening. We've got the digital ID, we've got the starting on 27th of December, and I read a really interesting article where even a mainstream commentator was saying this is absurd because everyone knows that kids under 16 are very computer savvy, so they'll just get a VPN and get around it straight away. So it's really about controlling it for the older generation. And this was a mainstream commentator, and I thought, yep, spot on. So
Yeah.
but again, you can get mad about it. And look, I think getting mad about it is good. I think this is half the reason we're where we're at is we don't get mad enough. At the same time, I love the topic you came up today: run or rise. Run or rise. So yeah, like, what do you? How would you describe rising? Great reset, great awakening, because that was your little motto.
Well, mate, at the end of the day, I guess the bottom line is that we have that choice every single day, mate, when we wake up. We can either run from the things that we need to address, or we can rise above it. We can find the courage, the power. We can work through it. At the moment, I think I've probably said enough the last couple of weeks around about where we are as beings on Earth, that Earth has got its own consciousness, which is moving. So it's very much, I think I might have used an example a few weeks ago, was about it's a bit like the 24-hour sale, like the Black Friday sale, Now's the time when you really want to do it because you're going to get much more value, a bit more bang for your buck is probably a good way to look at it. But when we talk around about, the great reset, so how could somebody get caught up into the great reset first and foremost? Well, if they're focusing on their instability, focusing on a collapse, above anything. If they're feeling anxious, even to the point of like people can feel paralyzed in this same sense too, because there's so much fear which is overtaking. A lot of uncertainty can also drive people down into a great reset. Um, Another big one, mate, is like when the identity starts to shrink, when you start to lose yourself, but you're not growing to become a better self, you're actually shrinking your identity, you're losing your identity. And things like what you just said there around about social media and stuff could be a big part of a lot of people's identity because it might be where they utilize their freedom of speech, so to speak. Isolation, another really big one, was when we start to fall into that great reset, those that are going down there. Um, it's really, I guess a lot of it's about reacting is a big part of the reset. When we react, when we haven't been proactive towards things, we can quite easily blame other people, governments, other organizations, other people, no matter what it might be. We can point the finger in other ways. Um, I think people that get caught up in the Great Reset are just living too small. It's that simple. I just don't really think that they're doing things to their full ability and living with purpose. So they're kind of drawing back, withdrawing from things, isolating from things, spending their own time losing their own identity along the way. Where if you look at it from another paradigm, and because it really is just a paradigm shift at the end of the day, right? So if you focus on what's like emerging, and what the opportunities are. Like we are in the technological age right now. This is where we're moving into. It's going nowhere. So what great opportunities. Efficiency can work very well in that space. A lot of wealth is generated in times like this as well, mate. I think it's as well too, like The Great Reset, you'll focus more on what's going on in their head. And as you've heard me say before, was it the devil can live in here, right? Where those that are moving with the Great Awakening will be starting to listen to their intuition and feel their intuition. And then even above that, start to follow their intuition. So they're heart led. They're not stuck in their head. They're actually being heart led. There's definitely a desire for truth, absolutely. Definitely probably a bigger desire for people around about health that are moving into the awakening. There's definitely a bunch of decentralized, community group stuff that is starting to form. There's a few bits and pieces. So people that might be associated with groups like that or communities like that are probably making the right steps towards a great awakening. Definitely takes courage, mate. And there's no two ways about that because it's not so much about the courage of what you face out there. You got to face yourself first and foremost. Like you've got to sit with stillness. You've got to work through the things that no longer serve you. I think another big part too is like you've got to be connected and you've got to live purposeful too, was in a great awakening. You must have purpose. So you can't have purpose if you think small. Purpose comes from thinking big. The great awakening, as well, as you'll find, mate, that people that are doing tasks that are bigger than themselves, right? Bigger than them, like really showing what they're capable of. So they're really two paradigms, mate, at the end of the day. But our actions, our behaviors, our thoughts, our emotions, they're going to steer us one way or another. I think I've said this enough the last couple of weeks, but the people that we're surrounding ourselves with can always impact what direction that we go. So it's not a bad time to cut and clean, mate, when we talk around about the wake
Mm,
up and the cleanup. I think often, especially when you talk to yourself, was there a lot of the time it can be talk around about, finances, cleaning up their affairs. And yeah, of course, that's a part of it, but cleaning up your environment, your network, who are you connected with, who serves you, who doesn't serve you, who pulls you up or who's pulling you down. I don't think there's ever been a more important time to ensure that you're surrounded by the right people that are moving forward with it. So finding new tribes, finding new people to be around. Um, Mate, that's in a quick little summary there for you, and happy to dive into it deeper. But again, it's attitudes, it's alignment, it's are you operating from the head or from the heart? Do your habits support? Even when you just talk about social media before and the IDs and stuff around social media, mate, in all honesty, I'd love to see everybody put social media down. When you think around about how much attention that pulls from people, where they could be focusing on other things, you've always got that constant thought of, oh, there goes the phone, there's the alarm, there's a text message. You're always attached to it, And as we both know, brother, you don't eat the apple from the tree, right? So, it's making little changes can do big, big, big things, but those little changes that people should be making now is really going to determine what it looks like from, mate, it's only about 12 months away, was like, let's be honest, in 12 months, it's going to be a very clear divide. Some people probably get what I'm talking about at the moment, and those that don't, in 12 months, you're going to see it very, very, very clearly exactly what I'm talking about. So it's a matter of, do you run? Do you isolate? Do you withdraw? Do you let worry take over? Do you let fear be your driver, be your motivator? Or do you rise above it and just be aware that, yeah, these things do happen. What's the better way to put myself in a better position? Who can I hang out with? Who can I learn from? What are some habits I need to put away? Even some things that might have served us 20, 30, 40, 50 years are just no longer going to serve us. And probably one other real big thing was that I don't think anyone talks enough about, because I really don't believe that we as species, and especially in Australia, I really don't think that we've got much emotional intelligence. And it's because we've never really been taught that emotions are just our feelings, things that we feel that are meant to pass, that give us teachers. But there's plenty of people that I encounter, mate, and I'm sure you do as well too, that are on the mission for the awakening. But there's a couple of things that they probably need to do beforehand. And one of those is forgiveness, forgiveness to themselves for whatever's happened in the past, forgiveness to others, forgiveness probably towards the governments and things like that. I'm not saying that to forget about it, but if you keep yourself in that emotion, then you're going to stay down low. So you won't move with the awakening. You've got to find acceptance, oneness. You've got to find understanding to things. We're not in control of anything really, right? And a lot of the time that can cause people stress because they don't have that control. But you've got to move into faith. So faith-based awakening, fear-based reset. Uh, the system definitely is going to catch a lot of people. Like there's no two ways about that. It'll catch a lot of people, but there's definitely two sort of pools. It's a bit like I don't know, when you're at school was and you got the basketball teams of the A's and the B's, you know. So you might have the better players in one team and the other players that sort of fill up the numbers in that second team. And that's really what's going to happen with the awakening. It'll be a very clear differential from who's been proactive, who's made the right moves, you know, who's cleared subconscious, who's forgive people, family members, friends, whatever it might be, themselves. I think, mate, I still probably am guilty of that at the end of the day, but it's pretty hard to forgive ourselves from the things that happen. But you know, the person I am today is not the same person I was yesterday, and I won't be the same person tomorrow that I am today as well either, right? So we always change and we always grow. So we've got to remember that we're moving in that space. So yeah, so without going on too much of a tangent, mate, you run or rise. It's simply that. It's going to be around about what paradigm you're going to choose, what actions will follow that, and you know what's around you that's going to support that. And putting the phone down is always a great place to start, isn't it? You know, because at the end of the day, mate, I think I'd find it hard to believe if most people don't have somewhere between 4 to 10 hours, you know, spent on their phone a day. And whenever you're in there, mate, you're missing out on all this other beauty which is around, right? And actually getting to be grounded in it.
Well, I went tonight for every few weeks. I get a, treatment and all that, and just like really advanced stuff, which gets myself back in full shape. And he said to me, "Man, you've been on the phone a lot," because literally he was working down my arm, and I was like literally wincing and all down my arm. And I realized that I've been way too much on the phone lately. Hey, and it becomes a distraction, and before you know it, and I was just thinking what you were saying and absorbing everything about the reset and awakening and the cut or clean. And I was thinking of what Dr. John DeMartini says. He says, money without meaning leads to debauchery and basically frivolity. Money with meaning leads to purpose and philanthropy.
Mm, yeah.
Powerful, isn't it?
It is, mate. I've always lived with purpose over profit, brother. That's I'm sure you're aware of that, but that's been my motto in life from day dot. It's never been around about profit. It's always been about purpose, and profit just seems to follow, and it follows a bit larger than what you even expect it, right? Because you've got your energy's focused in the right direction. And you just can't think small in that sense too, mate. I think that's another big thing there, what you're saying with John DeMartini. Like when you talk around about philanthropic work, it's when things are bigger than you, right?
Yeah.
And the higher that we shoot, the more that we receive. You know, mate, we've had plenty of business coaches ourselves over the years, and it's pretty much the one thing that I always get told, you know, is you're thinking too small. You're thinking too small. You're thinking too small. Even when I thought that I might have been thinking big, it's like, no, too small, too small. You got to think bigger. And it really does open up that mindset, mate. It creates more opportunities, but it's that energetic, you know, push that you put out, right? It's that energetic field. And, you know, even going back, I noticed that you've got a mystery school thing on this Saturday, I think. Is that what it
Oh,
is?
yeah, this Saturday we've been inundated. Yeah, all about the mind and changing your reality. Yeah.
Well, those type of things there, mate, you know, like I love mystery schools. And, you know, in that sense there, going back to scrolls where the real wisdom is, not the scroll of scrolling on the phone, you know, there's just so many little things that you can do that are right in front of everybody that shifts your whole paradigm. This great reset's not even really in my paradigm. In all honesty, about the only time it comes in is when I jump on these calls with you, to be fair, mate. But it's just around about what we choose and what we let in. Um, you know, it's probably a good question that anybody can ask themselves at the moment. But, you know, am I choosing fear or am I choosing faith? Because at the end of the day, it's a choice. It's we all have free will. The sun shines us all the same, right? I always think that's a good question for people to ask. I ask myself that not every day, but definitely, you know, every time that I sort of come to a bit of a fork in the road, because it's easy to fall into a low mindset. It's easy to fall into low vibration. But as soon as I make it aware to myself of that, hang on a minute, is fear taken over here? Or is faith going to take over? And once you make that choice, your energy shifts that way. It's almost like you dissolve the fear once you override it with faith. It just starts to fall away, mate. You know all about it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
100%.
Yeah. And, you know, again, it's a lot of this stuff going back to your books and things, your sacred scrolls, your mystery schools, things like that. Like at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? It's about how to control your energy and where are you giving your attention as well, too. And that's the biggest thing I see that we can, you know, myself guilty of this as well, that can blame other things for taking my attention. But at the the end of the day, if I choose to pick up that phone, if I choose to watch a Netflix series, if I choose to do these things, they're still all my choices, right? And so being disciplined is very important over these next 12 months. It's well, important in life in general, and I think I mentioned last week, and I hope some people got the opportunity, but the Four Agreements was the book that I mentioned, which is just a great short little book that, keeps you in line, ensuring that every day that you actually are, because it gets a bit corny throwing around things about be your best self, but if you can always improve a little bit each day just through your choice of your habits, then your life becomes pretty prosperous pretty quick.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's exactly one of the things we'll be touching on in mystery schools. How you have this Saturday in three topics. One of them is all about changing your energy and changing your whole life outcomes, and just simply by what you focus on. And I can remember getting very annoyed during COVID, where I had many people saying to me that the army would come in and pin you down and vaccinate you, and I'm going like, why would you want to create that reality for yourself? Because all studies show that collective consciousness can literally create outcomes for a civilization. And Michael Talbot in the holographic universe. It's I've actually gone back to reading it, Trent.
Good
He was
book.
actually, yeah, he had a really many profound insights which got him experiences into studying it. And he concluded that, you know, for example, there's one place in Italy where there's a healing stream, and anyone that goes in it tends to get healed and feel the presence of angels. And he looked into it and he realized there was a huge collective faith and belief system there. And my cousin told me, like, my cousin was an evangelist and preacher, and I think by the time he was 40, he'd never really seen many healings in his life when he prayed for people. And he went to India, to a remote area where the faith was very high. They had no hospitals, they had no Western um, medicine, so they relied by faith. And he just said he was walking up praying for people, and people's like ears were literally growing back, and like legs were growing back in front of him. My cousin was a skeptic; he was sobbing. He came back sobbing, and what he couldn't understand for the first few weeks was why did this happen there but not happening in Australia? And eventually he realised that the skepticism in Australia kills it. And remote viewing studies they've done in laboratories have found skeptics can literally kill the outcome of people doing psychic remote viewing just by having one skeptic in the world. And in the mystery school on Saturday, we'll be teaching about the fact that Jesus, whenever he do a great miracle, the first thing he do is kick out the skeptics out of the room.
Yeah.
And there was one where it said that there were mourners, and when he raised someone from the dead, there were mourners, and he walked out and kicked out the mourners because he knew their grief was stopping the miracle. So
Yeah. Well, again, that grief is an emotion, right? And that comes at a vibration. So it's that low vibration. Same as when you talk about, skepticism, it's an emotion as well, too. It's that low vibration. And you're very right, mate. Where your attention goes, your energy flows, right? So
yeah,
talking around about what we can do as a collective, with collective consciousness, I mean, we're here, aren't we? Collective
yeah,
consciousness put us here, right? Everything that we know is through the collective consciousness. So absolutely, it can be, it can be utilized, can be manipulated. But we're all just, we're all creations of the mind at the end of the day, right? It's all that generation of those thoughts. But when you give those thoughts away to others or allow others to come in and take that space, it's given free rent in your head at the end of the day. But mate, super important, brother. It's all about those high vibrations. And as you know, mate, when you're putting those high ones out, you get those back. It's just cause and effect. It's a universal law. Like there's nothing more to be said than that. It's just a universal law. What you put out is what you're going to get back. So if you're putting that skepticism and you're putting those, grief and bits and pieces, we'll expect that to come back to you. When you rise above it, and you're putting out your love, your oneness, your gratitude, and ultimately, mate, the highest vibration is authenticity. Like hands down, authenticity is the highest. So, mate, the way that we can overcome these challenges that, not only just us in Australia, but around the world that everybody's facing. Well, imagine if everybody just went to being there, maybe not back to, but went to being their authentic self. Great reset doesn't even exist then. Doesn't even exist because people will be doing what they're meant to do, living with purpose, serving others, doing things bigger than themselves, right? For me, mate, it's a no-brainer. Like it really all just comes down to, rising and rising as a collective. And if we can get Australia to rise, or if Australia rises, then mate, these problems won't even exist, And we've also got, God's behind this, Earth's got its going through its own consciousness shift. Like everyone and everything's on our side. It's just a matter of people getting out of their own way and putting their shift of that attention to go towards that authentic self and to higher vibrations.
Yeah, mate, I love that, Trent. I really do. It's interesting on that one because what this is something that I was asked recently about manifestation. Like, one of the mistakes that happened is I think there's a big difference between manifestation and fantasy, or what I call, or changing your consciousness. Like, you know, my fantasy might be to lie on the beach and be getting paid just for people to stare at me for my beauty, but it's not necessarily going to happen for me. I'm creating a very difficult manifestation. Um, One of the things Raymond Grace said, who was a mentor of ours, he said that literally that he said he's convinced that you could just about do anything if you believe. And this is what Jesus says in the Bible. He says anything you can do and believe. We saw tangible changes in government policy during COVID in a basically consciousness group that we had working throughout COVID. And we saw it so many times that it wasn't a coincidence, where we actually see exact changes in the policy to the letter. So I have
Mm.
learned we could do it, but of course, the more resistance you got on a collective level, the harder it is to make shifts. And that's been one of the challenges of Australia. We do have a consciousness that requires a lot more work and a skepticism that's very, very high. So
Well, it is, mate. Well, the biggest thing around about when you first move into consciousness, and definitely if you want to start to move into your manifestation and the rest of it, well, you've got to be able to sit with yourself first and foremost. I've found in all my time was that that's been the biggest challenge for most people is how to sit with themselves. Bodies want to do something, the mind's in a million different places. This is too much hard work, give up. This is rubbish, not doing that again. We've got to work with that. We have to sit. We've got to learn how to be silent. That's again where these phones and all these things come into it. I don't think people are aware how much these things distract us from our spiritual growth because we're always being pulled back into a lower vibration, even when we go and eat, and taste cost and convenience instead of nutritional value. Huge one, mate, like a massive one. Going through the week, doing things right in the weekend, letting things go, bang, it just falls back down. It's much easier to be unconscious. It's going to be much easier to fall into the Great Reset. There's no two ways about that. It takes responsibility, it takes work, and that work is really ensuring that you're always in control of your energy, and not letting it bleed to places that it shouldn't go to. Be mindful of, the spirit snipers and things like that too, right? Because that's what it's all about, mate. Everyone and everything is always trying to take the juice away from people. And then when you got no juice, well, you're no good for anything, right? It's
yeah,
there's so many things, mate. When you're aware of it, it's very easy to see, and it's like bloody it's almost like playing a football game, and you've got half the players on your team and twice as many on the other. You've got to take a lot of side steps. You've got to take a lot of pivots. You've got to take a lot of redirections. But there's definitely a path there. There's definitely light there, mate. There's no two ways about that. And that belief scenario, I couldn't agree more with. It's it's a huge difference in thinking that you believe or saying that you believe and genuinely believing. And where does that come from? Well, it comes from in the heart, right? If you believe about something, do you feel it for here? It's like, we've spoken about this before off camera, was it, about our beliefs? And mate, you know that I'll die for my beliefs. That's how much I believe in them. It's because my beliefs are bigger than me. It's not about Trent. It's my beliefs are my beliefs. And one of those would be for many years, I'd always be asked about God, right? Because people seem to find God such a hard thing to comprehend, which is interesting. And it's always a matter of, do you believe? And it's like, well, no, I don't actually believe. I know. Like, I know. Knowing is a whole different level. And I think that's the space that people need to get to. And, there can be things that can block that. There can be things in the way. There can be past traumas. There can be other people's energy. It's usually the biggest one, other people's energy or other things. And whether it be workplace environments, towns they live in, areas where people might be. There's many things that can absorb your energy, but you've got to be able to feel it, brother. And I think knowing is probably the greatest key to awakening. When you know yourself, when you know why you're here, when you know that life is bigger than you, this is when you start to really progress in this life, which then progresses that spirit for the afterlife as well too, bro. I think we forget about that often a lot. What is the meaning of life? Well, as far as I've ever been aware of it, it's around about seeking enlightenment. And what's the fastest way to get to enlightenment? Authenticity. And ensure that you're doing things that are true to you. And we've all got our own story to write,
Yeah, we sure do.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? This whole thing. I was just having a look at what we wrote in the original thing about the greatest opportunity. Like, how can you move your focus? Because obviously, when there's shitty stuff happening, give some practical examples. Like, how can we? Because often we hear 5D consciousness, shift your thinking, but I always like it when it's really grounded and practical. So, maybe give me two or three examples. I mean, and I'll do it after of very practical things you can do to reframe the way you see things and what's going on in the world.
Well, the first thing I think the first thing that anyone needs to start with is to sit in stillness. It's the first thing to sit in stillness, to be with yourself, to allow yourself to switch those thoughts off, right? Because, you've heard me say this before, but our mind is a bit like a two-way radio, where if we've got our finger on the button, we're sending a vibration, we're sending a pulse out there. Well, we can't receive anything when we've got our finger on the button. We've got to take the finger off the button to be able to receive. So too often people have got the finger on the button and they're sending messages out all the time. They're trying to control everything. They think they're actually in control. Where once you take that finger off the button and you can sit in stillness, mark my words, the solution will come to you. It will literally come to you. But if you don't allow that stillness, then it won't happen. Mate, this is really appropriate, and this wasn't aligned with what you're doing on Saturday. I only just seen your email earlier today, but scriptures, brother, daily scriptures. Great way to shift that mindset, mate. Great way. Wisdom, get out the ancient wisdom. Exceptional way. There's reasons why these books, these scriptures, these scrolls, all this ancient wisdom has lasted thousands and thousands of years, is because it's real. Is why it lasts. So become familiar with that. Be aware of all of that. Reduce negative inputs, and that's one thing that I've been mindful the last couple of weeks on here is like there's certain like the digital ID last week, like geez, it'd be pretty easy to jump on and belt out for probably 5 hours about how shit it is, rah, 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 rah. But what good does that do to anyone, was it? What good does that do to for me, you, anyone else, right? There's no point to it. So why do that? Um, Again, I'll just go back to your environment, other things that you can do, like curate your environment, right? Be very mindful of it. In your space where you sleep, where you live, where you work, be very mindful what's around, be very mindful who goes into that space because we're all these energy beings that can sprinkle out a little bit of our dust, right? And if you've got someone or something even in a space that's very negative, then you're going to absorb that negative energy as well too. So I think, curating it. And I think another big one was it's like practicing genuine honesty, like being genuinely honest with yourself and sitting with it and asking yourself if you're really being honest with yourself. Because if you're asking yourself that question, then you're probably not, is what I found in my personal beliefs, right? In my way of life. Um, that's another good one, mate. Creating more than you can consume is another really good one, right? Create more. Um, Finding something bigger than yourself, brother, is always another great way as well, too, right? Like something bigger than yourself, so it's not about you. Often that we can get into these mindsets that are negative mindsets because we're actually being almost narcissistic. We're about ourselves. We're being quite selfish. As soon as you take your focus away from yourself and something bigger than that, absolutely, it shifts your mindset, in many, many, many ways. So there's a couple of things for you anyway, was.
No, that's good. Well, I mean, I always like to go really practical. Like a lot of it comes down to what's your thoughts consuming you, and I call it the Father Christmas metaphor. Like, because often when you do what I call over, one thing I've learned in the wisdom of the Tao is that the more any excess can be problematic. Like excess exercise can be just as problematic as lack of it. And so I know some people have been taught like consciousness shift means you start walking around saying, I'm manifesting a better life. I'm doing this. And what I say to people is I call it the Father Christmas. Like let's say you're 8 years of age and let's say you actually trust your parents, because I know some people don't. And your parents say, or let's say you said to me, Trent, or I said to you, hey Trent, I'm going to give you for Christmas a $3,000 fountain pen. And you know I'm reliable for my word. Okay. Let's say what I told you I was going to do that.
Mm.
Does it feel to you like do you have any doubt that I'm going to do that for you?
I'd believe that you probably would, but I wouldn't understand why you would do it, apart from being a good bloke.
Well, let's say that
Why
I
would be
promised
better
you
somewhere
something.
else?
Well, let's say that I promised you something, like it was a fountain pen or whether it was a new thing or whatever. That was a Christmas present for you, and you knew I was going to give it to you, or someone was going to give it to you. So, in the moment you got that, Are you going to walk around saying like, "Oh yes, I'm manifesting this new fountain pen from Wazza"? Are you going to be walking around naming and claiming it? We're just going to sit joyfully in the knowledge and starting to visualize, like excitedly, about what it will be like when you've got it.
Yes. Option
Yeah,
B.
yeah. So you've got to start doing that. Like, let's say someone says to me, "I'm going to give you this amazing new car. This is the gift coming through to you." I'd be starting to imagine it. I wouldn't even be thinking negative, or stuff like that. Whereas if I'm starting to walk around saying, "Yep, I'm going to manifest a new car for Christmas. I'm going to do this," it's almost has the opposite effect because it's showing that you doubt it. Because if you didn't doubt it, you wouldn't walk around saying it all the time.
Yeah, but the
So
seed has been planted, right?
yeah, so true manifestation means you name it or consciousness shift and you start to change your thinking so much, but you just become at peace, trusting the process and going, you know what, it's going to work out fine. Yes, I'm seeing some challenges with digital ID. What are the opportunities that are going to come out of this? Like, what are they? And during COVID at the time was a horrific time. But I remember saying to people, I'm telling you, you watch the opportunities that will come out of it. There's going to be a great wealth transfer. Many people I've met now, COVID was a turning point for them. They got their finances out, they became online. My yoga teacher, who was very distressed at the time, she started to change her thinking. And she says to me, my business is better than ever because now I've got online yoga and people come on all over the world. But she said, I never would have done it because she would tell people, no, you can't run yoga classes online. That was her belief system.
Mhm.
My question and challenge is why can't we do that now rather than wait till we finish this and the world's falling apart, then go, oh, yeah, it was good for us. Why not do that now? Why not say this digital ID? Yeah, we're going to do whatever we can to stop that. But assuming we can't, which at the moment it seems the collective consciousness is like, yeah, let's just do it. What's this going to do positive? Like, what's the opportunities it's going to bring? What changes is it going to be for me? It's got me getting more organized with finances. I'm starting to realize, like, yeah, I've got to have a better plan C as well as a plan B. I've got to, and I'm noticing already I'm getting better structured in my finances, and I'm getting better with organizing my affairs. So that's just an example for me, practically, that by changing my focus on it.
Yeah, made a big one. I think so sometimes as well too that we've got to always take, one step back before we can take two steps forward as well too, was
Yeah,
that? And I think
yeah.
that, in my experience around, if you want to stick with manifestation for a moment and create new thoughts, that again, if you've got things that are in the way, then it blocks those thoughts. It stops you from being a creator. To be a creator, you need to have a free mind to be able to create. Otherwise, you got your finger on the button. So you're not actually being able to create anything. You're not be able to receive anything anyway, because you're always sending that frequency straight out. It it's interesting how much that, just us as species, right? Just us as human beings, how many things that we know, but we just don't seem to do, right? Right? Like there's many, many things like that there in itself, like what you're just saying here now. We know that where we put our attention, we know that those things will come back. But why do we put our attention on things that don't serve us? It doesn't make any sense in any way, shape, or form, right? And I think that's a big part of coming back to yourself and being empowered and taking control of yourself, controlling those thoughts. It's, I can never stress enough just about environment, was I? I think environment is a huge part. I genuinely believe that you just become a byproduct of your environment, you know? So whatever that energy is where you're spending your time in your environment, well, that's who you're going to be. It's a very simple fix, you know. I know you've heard me say this many times before, but like mentors and, people that are successful, people that you aspire to be with, that's who you should be hanging around with, right? Not necessarily the people that you've just grown up with because you're good friends. If you want to move forward and you want to progress, then you've got to make sure you put yourself in a vibration where that progression actually is, not that stability, not that comfort. Because the truth of the matter is, mate, as we go through the reset or the awakening, is at the end of the day, people are going to have to go one way or another. There is no being comfortable anymore. It's one way or another. So it's a choice. And if you don't make the choice to awaken, then you'll just be forced to move into the reset. It's pretty straightforward, you know. I feel like I've been banging on about the same things for about 3 or 4 years in that sense, and it nearly drives me crazy sometimes when I talk to people. And again, I'm not a technological person in any way, shape, or form, like the furthest thing from it, right? But the opportunity is huge there right now. We've got to learn these things. You've got to start to, engage with these things. Many people that I spoke to 4 or 5 years ago going in this space that I've seen since then, and oh yeah, I'm thinking about it, I'll get around to it. Like that opportunity, whilst there's opportunities now, these opportunities also come to an end because, well, nothing lasts forever, right? Like literally nothing. So you've got to take it when you can. And now is the time. I really don't want to be dark in any of this talk, but for anybody that's watching, all I can do is really encourage you. You know, you have to do the work at the end of the day, right? I can't, Warren can't, no one else can around it. But I really encourage you that probably your number one priority for everybody right now should be around their awakening, should be around about progressively growing their consciousness and their spirituality, because that's what will see you through all of this. And not only see you through it, will actually rise you above it. You know, just like the eagle, right? Go as high as you can where things don't
Yeah.
affect you. Just fly higher. Just keep rising. Just keep flying higher where it doesn't affect you. And the higher that you fly, the more abundance that you come in. I know people, some people might be thinking at the moment, oh, it's all good and well for you guys to say that. You know, if you Trent, you don't have kids, you don't have to stress about that, you don't have any money issues, it's all good and it's all well. Yeah, why, a lot of those things is because of the way that I've chose to live my life to rise above certain things, not get caught up in, what I see in my paradigm as the norm or what the matrix kind of expected. And it was always to rise above. And that's where these things come from. And they come from the higher vibrations that just magnetically make their way to you, you know? I hope that makes sense when I say it like that. Mhm.
No, it does. Like that, what you just said about the rising like the eagle. I remember one of my favorite Bible scriptures when I was young and involved in the church, and I would get trapped in the mire. There's a scripture in the book of Isaiah that says how we grow weary and we grow tired, but it says, "But those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall rise with wings like eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and they will not faint hearted." And it's a great scripture. And the picture is rising with the wings like an eagle, so that the mud might be below, but it no longer affects you anymore. And yeah, there's so much of this great ancient wisdom in the Bible. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Bible and the
Mhm.
Taoist teaching and the Bhagavad Gita, and there's just so much wisdom that you can learn all that kind of stuff.
Well,
And
mate, listen, yeah, you put it just logically and just think around about the eagle. You know, I've got two beautiful eagles that live out the front here over at Angels Beach across the road, and I see them every day. I love it. They're cruising. Quite often look at them and I just think, look at the perspective they've got on life. That extra 100 meters or whatever, however high they are up above it. Think about everything that they can see. Those small little things that if they were down on the ground level in a little four walls boxed in every single day, but that's not their reality. They're higher than that. They see a bigger picture to it. They see more. I think that's again comes back to, not thinking small. You've got to think big. You got to feel big. You got to look at these bits and pieces. But man, it's always about rising. We should always be rising. Like we rise every single day, right? Old Carpe Diem, seize the day, rise with the sun, own the day, seize those moments. It yeah, mate, it's a good time to be alive. It really is a good time to be alive. Um, I'm 40 now, mate, and I haven't seen as many opportunities as I can see right now in my 40 odd years, or my 30 odd years where I've really had my lens open to things. It's incredible, like absolutely incredible. Even the ability to be able to see people, get to people, you can pretty much be anywhere in 24 hours in the world, right? Maybe 48 hours, depending on how far that you go, but it's accessible to go anywhere and do anything. It's doing it.
yeah, well, how you frame, in fact, I work with a very good psychotherapist who's also a Kriya Yoga master who teaches a lot. And he constantly reminds me of how we frame our reality every day. And this is what Jesus said. In fact, if you read the teachings of the old JC, um, you can't go wrong. I mean, obviously, it hasn't been all that well taught by the church at times, but I know one of your favorite one is Jesus the Badass. When I show what Jesus was really like, and he was certainly no wuss. He taught about miracles. He taught about how to deal with taxes energetically. He taught how to deal with government corruption, how to deal with bankers. But one of the things he emphasized was how you create your reality in your faith level is what determines your outcomes in life. And he would constantly do that. He had no regard for what people thought about him when people would come and try and put their stuff on him, because energetically, we do pick up people's stuff. So, in terms of running or rising, something you said at the start was about cut and clean. And I like that expression. I mean, you've got these really good little acronyms like great, run or rise, great reset or great awakening. And cut or clean up, I like that because I've been doing cutting and cleaning. I learned from a very good friend years ago, or a very successful mentor, that he said, the top five people who influence your life will determine your state of consciousness, how you're feeling, and where you're at financially. And every time I do that exercise, I go, shit, if I see that. So I've been kind of, I think I mentioned this to you, putting people out of my life who I can see I don't see value in me. You value me, so I'm doing more stuff with you because I know you, and same with me. I mean, I appreciate you because we have our moments, but you're a man of action. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And I've decided, you know what? I don't want people who waffle with words. I want people who say they'll do shit and they'll do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you start to attract fantasy in your life. And if you hang out with too many dreamers who don't do anything, you become like a dreamer. If you hang
Hmm.
out with people who are very grounded, very practical, like, well, what's the results? And I love
Hmm.
my current business mentor I work with. Like even today, he's working with me in our mystery school in manifestation. But he's just very practically said, okay, so where's the credibility? Can you give me exact examples of results? How the results practically help people with their money? How has it basically done this? And I'm like, this is really good because it gets you back to grounded manifestation.
Yeah. Oh man, it's yeah, it's just coming back to those basics, but mate, yeah, cleaning up, absolutely. It can be hard as well too, especially for people that are very loyal people. They feel like they owe people certain things, but the truth is, mate, like we all come here at different times. There is no big doomsday. It's not like we all got here at the same time and then the world's going to end and it's all over. Like it's the biggest load of bloody BS that you've ever heard of, right? We all drop in here at different times. We all drop out at different times. We all have people that come into our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? Nothing lasts forever. Like nothing lasts forever. But you don't have to wait until something ends. You can be the one that cuts the cord. And when you cut those cords, you're cutting cords energetically is what you're doing. So it's not only people, it's habits as well, or behaviors is probably a better way to go. You were very right with what you said before was around about, exercise, doing too much is just as bad as doing none. Like very accurate. I spent a big part of my life in, the sort of the fitness world around a lot of people in the exercise world that they become obsessed and addicted. The body image comes in, the way they eat, they start to withdraw from other things. Their quality of life, really does, it definitely doesn't get any better. So it's finding some of those balances. And I think sometimes in those cleanups as well, too, was it's like, I'll talk to you about finances, but I've got other groups of friends that I won't talk to about finances because they're not the right people to talk to around about that. There'll be other people that I might go to somewhere else if I'm talking around about health and fitness. I might speak with those guys. Other people that I want to talk to about the Bible, as an example, well, there's different people that I'll have those conversations with. So, even now's a good opportunity to, as you do a bit of a cut and a clean, maybe sometimes it's a bit like cutting the pie up and maybe a piece needs to go over there, and maybe another piece needs to go over there, and majority might be able to stay here, and you might go and build a little bit more of a network in these other areas over here. So you might actually expand your network by not keeping everybody in that same pool and expecting the same things from that collectiveness. Dice it up, expand. Like expansion's what awakening's all about, right? So it's expansion. So we should be expanding everything in our lives, expanding our income, expanding our network, expanding our life experiences, expanding our wisdom as should always be number one, right? So it's an opportunity to expand. So when I say, cut and clean, yeah, absolutely cut and clean, but it doesn't mean that you don't expand from there again, right? It's a little bit like, I'll be mindful what I say here because I think most people know that I'm a bit of a fan of, of cannabis as a plant, but it's a prime example. You cut it and then it gets bigger. You cut it again, it can get bigger again. It's no different to any other plants, any other flowers, right? You've got to look after it. You've got to nurture it. You've got to make sure that it goes in the direction towards the light, towards where you're trying to go. So yeah, cleaning up, mate. Very important. Really, it's definitely something that I do in my life, like every 12 months, at least every 12 months. It's usually times like now, end of years and things like that, maybe birthdays and that sort of stuff where you have a look at it. And it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong when you cut and clean. Like for me, I've got most of my friends have all got kids. And it just naturally kind of happens a little bit because I don't hang out at, kids' birthday parties and I'm not knocking around at the schools at kids' pickups and stuff. You just start to go your own way anyway, right? But now is definitely a time to ensure that you're recruiting, if you're not already, if you're this type of person, if you're going with the Great Awakening, then make sure that you get yourself around some people that are on that same path, and watch yourself go far.
Yeah, I'm getting some very good comments here. Like, Michelle goes on enjoying this webinar so much. I mean, Jono says, what excites me about this conversation is what a generation of young people can do with this information. And of course, Jono of his homeschool would be loving this, Trent. And Meredith makes an interesting statement, and I kind of want to make a comment on it because it's quite a good one, but I'll get you to comment first. She says, a lot of ancient books say manifestation should not be used for selfish purposes, and there is a specific technique for the universe to answer, and that manifestation should be forgotten once it's felt internally. Do you have any comments on that before I make my statement?
I would probably just say, would you say it was Meredith that said that?
Yeah.
I would probably just ask Meredith, well, what do you think, Meredith? What is it? What do you feel when you? It's good to say that the books say that this, that, right, but how do you feel about it? What does it? What does it tell you? That would be my response was.
Yeah, I think it's a very good one. I mean, when we run our manifestation program or wealth alchemy, one of the things I say, yeah, I certainly agree with Meredith about letting go. Like the most important thing is like the Father Christmas analogy. You just let go and know it's going to come to you, and you have an attitude of gratefulness. And if you read all study all the best teachers like Joseph Murphy, Charles Hannell, Neville Goddard, they all say the same thing. They say very important that you feel it, you see it, and let go. And what Jesus puts, and I like what Jesus said, he makes it very simple. He said, if you believe, but you've already got it, you'll have it. That's it.
Mm.
If you believe you've already got it, you'll have it. So if you walk around assuming that you're fine and abundant, I call it like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. They just walked around knowing they're abundant. And I
We
see that
all
whole
are.
story. We're naturally abundant. I mean, being on Earth, like we're naturally provided for. It takes a lot of cultural colonialist programming to get us out of the knowledge that we are provided for, that we're living in a realm where nature provides for us, trees provide for us, there's fruit, there's everything. It takes incredible programming to get us into scarcity. It really does.
Yeah. Oh, mate, it's mind-blowing. I think sometimes we just forget how incredible we are, all of us, every single one of us, how amazing we are, how gifted we are. Like, just think of the human body, like, wow, like, wow, how all these things that this stuff does, like, it's so spot on. And then going back to around about that manifestation as well, too, is that I think it'd be very egotistic to think that what you manifest is exactly what's going to happen as well too. I would think that because in my experience with my manifestations that I ask for things and it's more around about the values that are kind of in those questions, I guess, or in those manifestations. And things do come around, but they don't come around the way that I thought they would come around. This has happened to me many a times where I might put that manifestation for asking for whatever it might be. And you sort of think, there's times I start to think, oh yeah, the Father Christmas scenario, oh yeah, okay, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And the next thing it comes from the other side, and you're just like, whoa, what's happening here? What's happening here? You're almost a little bit rattled. And then you realize that you've actually been gifted something even more than what you would ask for, or seen something, or witnessed something, or been a part of something bigger than that. The For me, I didn't have my chat box before, but I can see this thing here from Meredith, and I would agree with you, Meredith. I didn't see the chat box before, sorry, but you know, I there's two sides to everything. There's polarity to it, but manifestation. What do I believe that we should be doing with manifestation? Well, manifestation and prayer, to me, it's the same thing, right? I think that we should always be praying for everyone else, including ourselves, right? We just make sure we don't forget about ourselves as well, too, right? So we're all included in that same sense. Um, yeah, money can be the material, absolutely. I know that you'll have a few 2 cents on this one, Wazza, but money is currency. It's meant to flow. That's the purpose of it. And if you got deep pockets or you got access to that sort of stuff, then you can make big changes as well too. Um, Sometimes we can not think about ourselves enough as well too, was, and I don't say that in a selfish way as well too, right? But if there's things that we need into our life, or we believe that we need those, then I probably wouldn't say that it's selfish. I think it's around about take what you need and leave what you don't scenario, right? And whenever anyone does their manifestations, then yeah, you might have some stuff around your own personal life, your family, your people around you, but don't forget about everybody else as well too, right? I know that we do this quite often in our Monday meetings, and that was it, but forever praying for people over Australia. Why? Because it makes a difference. It's that simple. It literally makes a difference. And imagine if we could all come
I
back
think,
to that, huh?
I think one of the great things that the Bible says and is when Jesus was talking in the Sermon on the Mount to the masses, he said to them, how many of you are parents, and assuming you're not a complete moron, how many of you are parents and would really think, man, I would just like to see my kids in poverty and scarcity. That would be so fucking cool. I mean, Jesus said, if my kids, and Big Willie, my son, and then you got James and Edward and that, if they said to me, Dad, can you feed us? I mean, I go, haha, I give them a snake and it bites them. I mean, you would say I'm a psychopath. And Jesus gives that metaphor, and he says, how much more does your heavenly Father or Spirit want to bless you and reward you? And he actually says, oh, ye of little faith. Oh, you of little faith. In other words, there's a natural abundant provision for us that's assumed. And I think selfishness, we've got to be careful we don't put it on as a label, because a lot of our programming we get, like my mum was very much about, it's very selfish if you do that, or very selfish if you, have this and don't look after yourself. And many people end up becoming doormats or taken advantage of because of that belief system. And
Well, COVID was an example of that. Was COVID. What about you? What about everyone else?
exactly, you're being selfish. And whereas true giving is like, well, no, first and foremost, I would look after myself. Like, because I would live with myself. On my deathbed, I'm not going to be lying there thinking, man, alive, I wish I'd done more things for this person and that person. Yes, I probably would like to have given more, but more than anything, there's a regret as to the things that we didn't do and things like that. And I like what Dr. John Demartini says. He says he lives his life by the law of lesser pisses. He said he has a choice of pissing someone else off or pissing himself off. He'll piss off someone else because he'll live with himself, whereas he can get rid of the other person. So, look, naturally, I think if we are living on earth, we become givers, and if we become complete hoarders or miserly, our energy goes inward. And again, it's about balance, as the Taoists would say. I'm going to read a couple of really cool.
Got to remember we're creators though as well too, wasn't it? It's not like we have unlimited creations. It's not like we have limited creations. Like we are unlimited creators. We've been made in God's image with all of the ability and some, right?
Well,
so it's not like we run out of it.
Well, this is Jesus' closest disciple, okay? He says, if our hearts condemn us, God is greater than our heart and knows all things. Notice it's all about the inward person. And of course, the churches teach you the outward. I think I mentioned that. Like in the original version of the Bible, it says, have the faith of God for manifestation. Whereas basically the newer versions say, have faith in God. And the difference is like going externally. Have faith in God. Have faith in the institution of the church, rather than have the faith of God. In other words, be godlike in your beliefs. And he says, if our heart condemn us not, we have confidence towards God, and whatever we ask, we receive of God, because we keep the commandment and do what's pleasing in his sight. In other words, if our heart doesn't condemn us. And that's why Romans 14, which I've never heard of church teachers, and I think they'd freak out because it would empower people too much. He says, happy is he, this is Apostle Paul, who does not condemn himself in the thing he allows. Happy is Trent Chapman if he's not sitting there condemning himself. I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't be desiring to be in business class in the plane. I mean, it's just one example. I shouldn't, I should be selfish. I should be taking the vaccine. Happy is he that condemns not himself in the thing which he allows, because he that doubts is damned. If he is. And his whole scripture is about the whole vegan, vegetarianism, herbs. And Paul says those who are limited in what they eat, that's fine. They can do that. But just realize that someone who has got great faith believes he can eat all things. Another who is weak eats herbs. In other words, but he also says, don't always be true to your belief system. But the final words was, if you don't eat a faith, it's sin. So you've been taught sin is you don't go to church on Sunday. That's Dark Ages teaching. Sin is actually like you stop living while you're in the truth. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say that I became a complete plant medicine freak. I'll just give an example. I would not be living my truth, and because I don't want to do that. If I started to kind of, for example, let's just say, not drinking ever because I felt guilty about it, but deep down I don't mind the occasional wine, then I'm not living by my own truth and I condemn myself. If I drink wine and I believe I'm sinning against God, I'll condemn myself. There were people in the last century, in the 1800s, that genuinely believed that drinking coffee was a sin in many of the Bible Belt. So for them, if they drank coffee, the belief would have caused them to be poisoned. And so we cannot comprehend enough. This is why the big reason I'm doing this Mystery School Sunday, because it's like we cannot comprehend how much our beliefs frame our realities. And I learned this firsthand at Raymond Grayson's workshop in Virginia. And I was shocked at the things that I believed that just were not true. Even now, I find that every year, Mark Manson, in his book Everything is Fucked, says that. He goes, every year we're wrong. Every year we find out where we're wrong. We live our lives discovering that we're wrong. And he goes, I'm okay with it. I've learned to just believe, to just follow my truth for now, but know I'm open to change because of the only thing I know for sure. And the only thing you and I know for sure, Trent, is what we're saying today. Some will be good. Some of it we'll look back in 3 years' time and go, oh shit, why did we say that?
Yeah, well, that belief though as well too was it all comes back to your authenticity as well too, right? It's coming back to being that true to yourself, and I think it's a good way just to put a little spin on here. 'Cause you probably wrap it up in a moment, mate. But that the great the run or the rise, it's like the great reset's happening out there, the great awakening's happening in here within you,
I like
right? So the great awakening in the spirit, yeah, the great reset will be out there. If you can adjust as within, so without. So if you work on yourself in the great awakening, you will change the reality for the great reset for yourself anyhow. But it's got to come down to your belief system because we're all creators, brother. I'll say it a million times. We're all creators. We can create whatever we like. And just quickly, I'll give you one last thing was just with what you were saying about manifestation and that, because you made me think a little bit about that as you were talking. And one of the greatest things I think we can do for others is to inspire others, right? And how do we inspire others? We inspire others through our actions of authenticity, right? So, I know for myself, I have plenty of mates that come around, mates that have been visiting me for 10 years and they come around. And I'm always the lucky one, how I'm lucky with everything that I do in my life. And it's like, I'm not lucky, but the things that when I sit down and when I sit at the kitchen bench with someone and I ask how they've been and I hear what they talk about and it's all about the problems of the world. I've got a fair few mates that are drama queens, and then they'll ask me, yeah, there might be things that might be affecting me or that I've thought about, but I simply don't put that energy back out. I don't repeat it out there. It's always great. One of my greatest mentors, he's one of the most happiest go lucky fellows who's probably got more money than anyone I know. And I've always seen whenever somebody has a win, no matter what that is in that win in their life, I don't think anyone's more happier. He's more happier for the bloke that's had their first little win on the first business deal or whatever it might be, as if it was for himself. And that's the secret to his success is celebrating other people as well too, right? Putting the good vibrations out and encouraging because we inspire others. We can encourage others through our actions as well too. We can support plenty of people. Um, yeah. Anyway, it's probably about 8:30 now, mate. So if you want to go through anything else.
Well, I think we should just what's your final summary of everything, Trent, that you'd like to share with people. And while we're doing that, everyone could just share your greatest learning in the chat.
I think, mate, just probably one thing for tonight is that life is we all have free will at the end of the day, regardless. Where some people might think that we don't at the moment, we do. We always have a choice, right? And I just cannot encourage people enough to understand consciousness and to focus on spirituality, work towards their authentic self, break away from those limiting beliefs, shift your environment, tidy it up in every way, shape, or form, and start thinking big, right? Like start thinking big. Be the change that you want to see in the world at the end of the day, right? And then watch that. As within, so without. Change here starts with the man in the mirror. Watch everything else change for you on the outside.
No, I love that. Perfect. So really to finish off, just two quick things. One, yeah, a couple of people messaged me about the mystery school. If you want to come, here's a registration link. I've just chucked in there. It's a free one. We won't be having recordings. It'll just be a live, free one. The second thing is Trent. Yeah, as you know, there's been a typhoon in the Philippines and some of our staff and others were really affected. And we were talking about a bit of a way of giving back today, but rather than making any sales offers or anything, we're just going to, you're going to share a little bit and open the door for people who want to give back and help people a bit less fortunate right now.
Yeah, well, I'll just quickly go over it for the guys, but must have been late last week, was it or something like that? And he gave me a call, and As you're probably all aware, I've been doing a bit of stuff for Woz and the team over at GWC the last couple of months, and um, there's three females that work in the background, and they're in the Philippines, and they're lovely. They've definitely made my life very easy doing my work with Warren, because I don't like admin and I'm not real good at that sort of stuff. And they're exceptional. And Wazza had called me just to let me know the other day. I think must have been Thursday or Friday last week, Wazza. And he just gave me a
Yeah.
call to let me know that a typhoon had hit the Philippines. So if the girls were a bit unresponsive, whatever, the next couple of days, and that was what was going on. And I just said to Woz, how bad is it? Because I don't watch the news. I've got no idea what's going on in there. And I was like, how bad is it? And he's like, it's really bad. One's lost their home, and one's lost most of their things, a couple of the people in their family. And I just said to Woz, I was like, well, mate, I think it's time that, we come together. Us as a team was just sort of talking more about the GWC team. And I just made the suggestion to Woz. I said, mate, why don't we next Wednesday on the webinar, if you get an account or whatever, Wazza, why don't we encourage or just ask people if you want to contribute, want to help, and let's send a couple of bucks over to these people that are a part of our community. Like, the truth of the matter is, the Zoom link that I got sent to jump on here today was those girls. Any of those consults I've done with people, it's those. Any of those proposals and stuff that get sent out to people, it's those girls. So, mate, yeah, are you putting something up in there? But if anybody would like to contribute, and I presume that you'll manage this and shoot it over to the guys, is your plan, yeah?
Oh, what I've done is I've basically given the bank account and the PayPal in the chat, but in case people can't access it, that's it there. What we're going to do is open, transparency. Anything that comes in, my first priority is our existing staff, obviously, making sure that they're taken care of. My second priority is I've told them you must have family members and friends badly affected, and they said absolutely. So I said, yep. If there's any left over, we're not going to keep any of it. Okay, we've been blessed. We're looked after. City Awakening Foundation is my own church and that, and we want to help our staff and help people like that kind of stuff there. So, if you feel led to give it, yeah, just give it an AUD is fine. Just give an AUD, please. But if you would give back, I know the staff would be very, very grateful. I was talking with Belle, especially. Belle does a lot of all the web pages that you see where you register all the membership site video stuff, the recordings, the replays. It's all Belle. Yeah, she's been badly affected. At one stage, she was frightened on the roof. It was so high of her house, waiting to be rescued last week about this time. And computer got damaged and all kinds of stuff. And then Jane got affected and her house and neighbours. So yeah, absolutely, it's been really affected. Tony asked by credit card. Yeah, no, look, you guys are amazing. Thank you for even being willing to do that. This is really fantastic. If you want to pay by credit card, email the support at theawakeningwithin.net. That's an email as well. And just say how much you want to do. And just be clear it's a donation for the Philippines, and just do that, But, thank you for being willing to do that. We've already had, a couple of clients volunteer and give money, and the staff are very moved. They're almost in tears. So it's very inspiring to see everyone giving, and it feels good to give, doesn't it, Trent?
Mate, it's nothing better. Sorry, brother. I'm just doing a donation right now whilst I've got those numbers
Oh,
there.
you're wonderful.
Yes, there is no better feeling. There's my donation for you, Wazza. And I will happily always contribute to anything like that, mate.
Yeah.
It's nice to just sometimes some of us can stand tall than others, guys, and it's important to make sure that we all stand up together, And to me personally, I don't think there's anything better than being able to be of service to other people. So if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. Simple as that, right?
Yeah. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Trent. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome. Thanks, Wazza. Thanks everybody for your time tonight, guys, and I hope you enjoy your week, and we'll see you all next week.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, Trent. See you, Ben. Bye, Ben.